because the Israeli security, which is a tough and very conservative milieu, see that it's possible. And the Israeli people see that it's possible. And to continue with this trend, and let's assume we shall be able to overcome the gaps of the borders demarcation. I'm not speaking now about Jerusalem, refugees, the other core issues. Then the second stage can be reaching better understanding about the border control by both sides. What is needed that every side can perform is duty, is missions. These are the steps that are being built now in West Bank. We have the model between Israel and Jordan, the longest border, no any third party between Israel and Jordan. I think that between Israel and the Palestinians, we shall need in the future third party. But the model between Israel and Jordan, which is very close also to the Palestinian Authority, can be learned very well. How we made it, how we are dealing with it now, how war on terror together, coordination and liaison, monitoring, military and security relations are important. Tourists, whatever. There are political problems with Jordan, mostly because of the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. But the border is being kept almost in a very high standard, and the security feelings of the Israelis and the Jordanians, and the Palestinians in the West Bank also are affected by it from their side to the Jordan, to Transjordan, which gives a lot of hope for the future. Now in Gaza, it's a big problem. Gaza is a state-like entity. If I put the terror beside the bureaucracy, the agencies, the control of Hamas of Gaza, they are acting like a state. The problem with Gaza is that Gaza, any minute, can be a big spoiler for the peace process or for any achievement in negotiations. The role of Hamas in Gaza is very concerning. De facto, there are two Palestinian entities, and in between Israel. This is also a big, not just a security problem, it's a political problem, and a security impact of this problem is that every minute in Gaza depends on decisions, depends on appreciation of the situation. The escalation can start, the flame can start, and then the mechanism of violence, which can expand also to West Bank, is always in the air. I will stop here, and later on, if there will be questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Brigadier General. So we're moving, if you like, from these broad geopolitical brushstrokes, and we heard about Syria at the start, heard a little about Jordan, to the finer details of cooperation on the ground with the IDF and the Palestinian security services. So there's a kind of a natural progression here, and we hope we can bring out more of that in discussion, and we'd like to talk about the details. Before we do that, I'd like to hand over to the final panelist, Ephraim Halevi, who is a former director of Mossad and also former Israeli ambassador to the European Union, for the last perspective on this panel.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by expressing appreciation for inviting me here today, and my appreciation to Mrs. Atkin and to the Foundation for their extremely important initiative in creating the ICSR and promoting it. I was not familiar with its activities until recently, and I must say I'm not used to being surprised from an intelligent point of view, or intelligence point of view. I'd like to make some brief remarks. First of all, I'd like to ask a question, and I don't intend to give an answer. People refer to the occupation from '67. I believe the occupation began in '48. In '48, Israel became an independent state, and the rest of Palestine was occupied. And the question is, why was a Palestinian state not created in 1948? And I leave that question to you, and I leave the answers to you, and I suggest you ponder that point, because From every point of view, it was possible to set up a Palestinian state. Israel had nothing to do with the area beyond the 1967 borders, which, by the way, were the 1949 borders, because those are the borders which came into being after the War of Independence. Security is not just a function of balance of forces. It's also a question of who your partner is, and something was said about this just before. But I'm talking about a negotiating partner, the Palestinians. What are their intentions? But not only what are their intentions, what are their capabilities? What are their real capabilities? And I believe that the security situation and the security capabilities which have just been described by General Spiegel have not been matched by a political capability on the part of the Palestinians. As of the elections of 2006, the last democratic election, the only democratic election held, somebody said, in the Middle East, possibly, there have been no elections in the Palestinian Authority. From time to time again, there was talk of being an initiative to have an election for the presidency. President Abbas promised an election for the presidency after he was going to hold a Congress of the PLO, which had not been held for 20 years. Well, Israel cooperated in allowing this Congress to take place and allowing people to come out into Israel and into the territories from all over the world. And the Congress was held in Bethlehem, and no elections took place after that. There was a promise for municipal elections, which is a lower level of elections. No elections have taken place. We have Mr. Abbas, we have Mr. Fayyad, who everybody compliments, and rightly so, but who else is there? What is the real substance, what is the real fiber of the Palestinian Authority? And I believe one has to say, unfortunately, that by their own behavior, the Palestinians have not shown that their political capabilities in forging a system, a structure, has brought positive results. This has a bearing on the security aspect, because, as was said before, and I agree with that, we have to take into account all kinds of possibilities, all kinds of contingencies, and it's possible that a Palestinian state will come into being and the present leadership will no longer be there after a very short period of time. It might be taken over by others. All kinds of other things can happen. We've had changes of regime or changes of government in Israel, very frequent changes. I'd say too frequent changes. We've had prime ministers who've come and gone. I was head of Mossad for 4.5 years, and I served 3 prime ministers. One who appointed me, Mr. Netanyahu, one who took over, Mr. Barak, and then lost an election, and then Mr. Sharon. And before that, I was deputy head of the Mossad under 2 prime ministers, Mr. Shamir on one side of the rainbow and Mr. Rabin on the other. So we have a system, for better or for worse. We have a very frequent change sometimes at the top. What was going to happen with the change at the top of the Palestinians once we have agreed to the creation of a Palestinian state? Who will be there? What are the chances? I don't know. I think nobody knows. And therefore one has to be cautious, very, very cautious. I think also the Palestinians have to take stock of themselves. There is the Hamas. I, for the last 7 years, have advocated bringing the Hamas into the equation. Those, by the way, who opposed this were not only Israel, but the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian movement, the Fatah, is deadly opposed, was deadly opposed to any compromise or any real reconciliation with the Hamas. That was their call. They had to make the decision, and they paid the price. They paid the price, and they were the cause of the ultimate secession of Gaza and the new regime in Gaza of the Hamas. This is also something we have to take into account, and we have to be very careful about this. I'd like to say 3 more things.